All right, folks, hello and welcome to another edition of the Launcher live stream. As always, Launcher is the video game and esports vertical of the Washington Post. My name is Mikhail Klementov. I'm an editor at Launcher. And with me today, we have Shannon Lau, a reporter at Launcher. Say hi, Shannon.
Hey everyone.
But we also have two completely new guests to the stream. We'll start with Nathan Grayson. Say hello.
Hey, everybody.
And Alyse Stanley. Say hello.
Hey.
So this stream is going to be about, getting to know the new members of the launch crew, the new launchies, a tiny bit better. We're going to talk about, which video game characters you can fight and beat, their backgrounds in video game journalism and journalism in general, and also some of the news from the past week and the week before that. So I guess to start, Alyse, tell me a bit about the work you do at Launcher.
So I am a copy editor for Launcher. So I go through and line edit, make sure everything is correct, make sure all the facts are correct, the grammar, the spelling, and whatnot. And then also help out with headlines and then moderating chat sometimes.
Yeah. So the work that is extremely, extremely valuable to making sure the stories are right and read well and look good. Even if your even if your name isn't on every story, your touch certainly is. Nathan, how about you? Tell me a bit about your work at Launcher.
Yes, I mean, I'm a reporter. And like when I was at Kotaku, that was kind of what I did too. My main focus in the more recent years has been Twitch and live streaming and stuff like that. It's very funny to me that I'm being introduced on a YouTube live stream in light of that. Okay, well, anyway, but yeah, so a lot of kind of covering both Twitch and then also the video game industry at large. And especially with Twitch, I like to view it as, coverage of a platform. Because I think there's a lot of coverage of Twitch out there that's very focused on like the drama of the day or the week or whatever. And my kind of broader approach is to, follow more in the footsteps of platform reporters who cover things like Facebook or whatever, where it's like a big framework in which people operate and live. And like, how does that platform shape people and change the ways that they interact with each other, and then also the ways that we just communicate with each other on the internet.
Yeah. I think some folks might already know, but for those who don't, Nathan, give us a rundown of your background in games journalism, in journalism in general.
Yeah, so for the past almost 7 years, I was working at Kotaku, which is a big video game website somehow run by an incredibly small staff of people. And so, yeah, I got started there in 2014. Before that, I was a freelance. Well, for that, I was technically at Rock, Paper, Shotgun, but I was also a freelancer because of British employment stuff that's weird. But yeah, so for most of my career, I've been at Kotaku covering various things. I got my start covering like Steam and PC gaming and stuff like that, but I've kind of always covered the industry pretty broadly. So a little bit of everything.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I would say that Kotaku is definitely kind of the biggest influence on my reporting and writing DNA.
That makes perfect sense. I realize now that I have made this. I might be giving like flashbacks to job interview days. We'll move past that very soon. Alyse, tell us a bit about your background in journalism and game journalism.
So I've also worked as a freelancer, writing features and news for the Daily Dot about memes, but then also video games, writing for Polygon, Rock, Paper, Shotgun as well. And then I've also, for the last 2 years, I've freelanced for Gizmodo, writing on their evening and weekend news desk. And Kotaku and Gizmodo are owned by the same people, so we're kind of, me and Nathan are kind of coming from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We have someone in the chat, Real Prism Sword, who says, "Congrats to the newest member of Launchers." And I am just going to, and Alyse, I hope you back me up on this. The style for members of the Launcher team is launchies or launch crew, not launchers.
Good to know. I'll note that.
Yeah. In the style guide, you absolutely have to update that. Also, just to quickly poll the room, how many of us here are in gamer chairs right now?
Let's see. So we got 2 in gamer chairs, but we have 3 gamer chair owners. Shannon's just not at home.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
as I just said in chat. Shannon has the same chair as exact
Yeah.
model of the chair.
When we do a live stream in a couple weeks, we can show off our matching chairs. But
Yes.
not today,
Yeah.
And
sadly.
also to answer Eric Moss in chat, yes, I am sitting in the chair that fell off the truck.
Nice. Hi to Eric. Hi to Zach. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
All right,
Zach
and
is great, by the
now
way, he's another Twitch reporter, and he's amazing at what he does. So
that's absolutely
special
right.
hello to Zach.
I
Regular hello to everyone else.
I think it was yesterday that you shared a link to Zach's work in Slack. So yes, 100%. Now the question that everyone joined this stream to hear the answer to: which video game character could you fight and beat? Nathan, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I actually have a lot of because while thinking about this, I came up with a broader framework for an answer to this question, and I think through sheer attrition, most of them. My reasoning is that video game characters get killed by like really weak things in most video games. Like especially, Mario, Donkey Kong characters like that get killed by like, in the case of Mario, tiny little Goomba creatures. Donkey Kong gets killed by like birds and rats. Like if a bird or a rat can kill Donkey Kong, I sure as heck can.
Do you think that if you were in a video game context, you would be able to withstand a bird or a similarly minute entity that wishes you harm?
I think that well, that's a good question. I mean, I think it depends. Okay, actually, wait, I can already answer this. Never mind, I came up with an answer.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, reason being that in the context we're discussing, one where I am facing the hero of the game, I would theoretically then be classified as an enemy. Enemies generally cannot hurt each other in games like these, meaning that none of them could hurt me.
Would you take on the characteristics, the standard characteristics of a video game enemy, though? Would you have the like 3 hits on your the big glowing part of your body, or someone jumps on your head, or your shields are depleted
Joel
and then you're
fooled us
punched?
once.
Like, would that apply to you by that logic?
I think to some degree. I think that I have spent enough of my career very deliberately trying to destroy video games that I would at least qualify as like a mini boss, if not a full-on regular boss. So yeah, I'd have some of those characteristics of like, attack patterns and like weak points that eventually open up and stuff like that. But I wouldn't let Donkey Kong, a miserable, smelly, weird ape man, get to that point.
I really do think most people would be ended by an ape. But Alyse, question for you. Are you a mini boss, a full boss? Where do you land within this framework? How do you feel about the question of a video game character you could fight and beat?
So I was approaching this question from a much more like practical standpoint. I was thinking of like, what characters could I fight in real life and win? And for some reason, the only thing that's coming to mind is the little sisters from BioShock, because I'm pretty sure I'm stronger than a child, but I'm not confident beyond that.
That's fair. Would you go evil mode on the children at the end, or would you? I haven't played BioShock in a very long time, but as I
Same.
recall, you were given a moral choice pertaining the little sisters. Which path would you choose after defeating one in real life?
I would probably choose the good one. I'd buy her some candy and apologize for beating her up.
That's fair. I think I speak for everyone on the team when I say that all of the launchies would choose the good moral path. We're just kind of generally upstanding. Shannon, how about you? How do you feel about a video game character you could fight and beat?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I could beat Anne from Persona 5 with her like whip, I think, because she always so easily, so quickly to any monsters. I'm like, I can probably take her.
Oh.
Yeah, so that would be my answer. But also, if the question was like, who could I outrun? Probably outrun a lot of things, like including like the dogs from like Last of Us Part 2. I think I could outrun them, but I couldn't necessarily like arm wrestle them. I think they would probably eat my face. So,
That's
Yeah, so
that's
you'd want kind of
perfectly
like
fair.
like a triathlon, like of different competitions, like a bunch of different things, and like you'd win like best 2 of 3 or whatever, and that'd be considered.
Yeah, like if something is dangerous, like chasing. Well, I'm thinking like more like like zombies are chasing you and the world's ending. Like I would try to outrun them. I probably could. But yeah, a triathlon too.
So in like, oh,
in
go
this
ahead.
fight, could we have a gun? It doesn't say physical fight.
Oh,
I
I think with the gun, my
Donkey
chances would
Kong.
be a
I
lot
revived
better.
my answer. Gonna try
that
to
changes
punch me.
things
What
a
are the rules?
lot. I think we're kind of operating in a free space, so I guess this is a tough one because I feel like if you're bringing a gun to the fight, there needs to be some kind of countervailing like debuff that you have if you're bringing a gun to this fight. So I don't know who would you beat if you had a gun?
Most shootable things, I would think.
Nope. Nobody, because my aim would be worse than the person who's
Oh,
shooting
yeah,
at me. Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's
Yeah,
a good
actually,
point
this is
too.
a real
I have
dilemma
very
in
bad
that.
eyesight, so I probably would not be much
Yeah,
more
well, this
dangerous
is
with a gun.
you learn a lot about yourself on this front by playing like Half-Life Alyx, if
Mm.
y'all have the VR version of Half-Life. Because yeah, like they definitely had to deliberately design the game such that you were not encountering other characters with guns until like midway through, because you had to acclimate to so many different things, including like using a gun with your real hand as opposed to like a game controller. Because like early on, man, just dealing with like even one enemy, between them like being in your physical proximity and that being terrifying, and then like having bad aim meant that you were like running in circles around one zombie. You're just like, oh god, oh no, this is gonna be it for me.
Yeah, I have a question from the chat, or it is not a question by the chat. It is a question I have after reading something in the chat. Winterton Game Studio says, I think my go-to answer for easiest video game character to beat up is Lester the Unlikely, but I have no idea who Lester the Unlikely is. And I am opening the floor to anyone who knows who Lester the Unlikely is and can clue me in on this character who I think we all could surely beat, because I will go on Winterian Game Studios' word here. Does anyone know Lester the Unlikely?
So I sure don't, but I just did a Google search, and he's apparently a character in a fairly old game. Let's see, it came out in '94, and yeah, it was on the Super Nintendo. He
So
does
I
look pretty
did not
beatable.
play
He looks
that
like a
because I was 2.
There's a
yeah,
chance
that's
that
fair.
Lester is older than me. Let's see, Lester the Unlikely. Do we have a month that this game? January 1994. Lester is older than I am.
All
So,
right,
damn.
that means he can beat you up though. That's how that works.
I feel like there is kind of a parabolic like scale in terms of age, of like when you reach a certain age, that's when your physical ability is at its peak, and then it kind of goes down from there. So I don't
You're
know.
saying like
Counterpoint,
Lester the Unlikely's
counterpoint.
right
Okay.
over his peak,
Hugh
but you
Jackman
aren't yet.
and The Rock.
Oh,
They are very
I-
strong and also
you
old.
want?
They will reach the parabolic
I feel like
peak
certain
at
ones
some
just keep.
point.
Well, they would if they weren't like on a lot of steroids.
Yeah. Do
So
we have
The Rock,
steroids in this fight? That would change it too.
I feel like if we're starting to introduce steroids, then like, yeah, I guess if I underwent like a bunch of training, if I went through like the Master Chief regimen of training, then like, yeah, I could probably beat a lot of video game characters. But I worry that that adds too many factors into the equation. I feel somebody in the chat raised that you should only be able to bring what you have on you, and I do kind
Oh,
of like that logic.
okay. I mean, I think the answer to this question for maybe all of us also is like Donald Duck from Kingdom Hearts, the most notoriously
Hmm.
brutal
He doesn't know
party
how to
member in
heal, so it'd
history.
be really easy.
Yeah.
Right. He'd probably heal you on accident. You'd come away feeling better than you went in.
Yeah. That's perfectly fair. I don't have a question or follow-up point on this, but when Shannon was giving her answer about the triathlon, I just envisioned Mario and Sonic and Shannon at the Olympic Games. And not really any more follow-up to that, just putting that idea out into the world.
He'd send
Let's
them home crying. They'd be so upset because she beat them
I
so bad.
I think Shannon could probably beat Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games.
Like
Yeah.
in running. Because are you familiar with the one thing that Sonic does?
I guess if we had, if we're like, I think if it were all medals, if Shannon and Sonic and Mario had to go through every Olympic event, Sonic would win running. I think Mario would win like high jumps and whatever, pole vaulting. I don't know about the other sports.
Real
I
quick,
think you
just for the.
like. Go ahead.
Oh no, it continues. Sorry.
I was just like, I think you just like argued against yourself there, and like kind of under. Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Sonic
I was
would
just gonna
definitely
say
have.
that in talking about Sonic and Mario, I remembered how Mario is so short in Odyssey, like compared to
Oh,
humans. So I think I
yeah.
could beat Mario. So I'm changing my
Yeah.
answer to him.
But he jumps really high.
I feel like I
Is
could
the-
kick him before he jumps,
Hmm.
or throw a turtle shell at him.
It'd be that one crucial moment that begin. It's like in an anime where it's like one hit, like one of you is going to hit the other, and the other one's going to fall down, and whoever does it first, they're the victor. The most anime fight ever: regular sized person versus
Versus Mario.
small Mario.
Huh. I guess if that were the format, yeah, it would be kind of a toss up. But all right. Unless anyone has any more on video game characters they could fight and beat, I think we can pivot to the news of the past week and a half or so. I'm going to take that as there's nothing more about video game characters we could fight or beat.
Let's do
Nathan,
Let's abruptly transition.
You wrote 2 stories about Twitch, your first 2 stories for Launcher. The first was about XQC and a widely publicized case he had against the International Olympic Committee. I have not heard about that since that story kind of erupted. It doesn't seem as though there have been any profound developments. Can you give us a rundown of the situation? Give us a sense of what's happening now.
Right. Well, to clarify one thing really quickly, case against the Olympics is kind of an overstatement. What happened is he broadcasted some, a handful of different like videos off of YouTube that included Olympics content, and he received a DMCA strike for that, meaning that his channel was taken down while live in order to prevent him from streaming any more of it. And so he ended up deciding to contest that, meaning that on that front, the ball is now actually in the Olympics court. If they want to sue him, they can. Seems like I mean, it's hard to say if they're going to. These things can move slow, so it's not a guarantee that it won't happen. But for now, it has not happened. But a lot of people were worried because the basic idea is that if he were to get sued by the Olympics, then, that could be a bad time for him. Court cases take a long time and they're not fun or interesting. I remember XQC like early on when he announced this was acting like, if he were to get sued, it would be great content and it would be like so cool and fun. And it's like, no, that's very incorrect. Court is none of those things. But then on top of that, streamers, especially Ethan Klein, aka H3H3, was concerned about potential cooling effects on fair use. The basic idea being that fair use is like a highly misunderstood concept among streamers and YouTubers. Generally, fair use law is a defense where you can basically say like, yes, I used copyrighted content, but in this case, it was like changed enough that it was okay, or that you should not be able to like retain the rights for my version of this particular thing. But the key issue being that a lot of people on the internet think that fair use is like this protective bubble that surrounds us all. And in fact, it's very case by case, like literally rooted in the facts of every case that occur around it. And then it is specifically a legal defense, meaning that it does not get invoked until somebody has already gotten in trouble for using copyrighted content. And so people were worried that like if XQC were to lose a case, then it could hurt fair use more broadly. And maybe it could, like way down the line, years from now, if it like went to the correct court for all of that. But it's unlikely just given how fair use law is structured. Again, given that it's so like fact-based and specific to individual cases. So that's what a lot of my story was about. Basically the idea of like fair use being pretty misunderstood on the internet, despite being this thing that so many different streamers and YouTubers cite, because so much of their content is technically transformative content, meaning that they take things that are copyrighted, for example, video games, and play them, uh, and put them up on their own channels and make money off of them. I mean, like for example, even the Launcher YouTube channel exists because of the idea of transformative content. But it's also misunderstood in that in a lot of these cases, especially with like Twitch and gaming, it's not there's like a fair use bubble protecting people who do it. It's the companies have realized that it's more to their benefit to not stop people from playing their games. So like, well, broadly speaking, this is marketing for us. And then if we stop people, because it's a cultural norm now to do this, it'll be huge negative publicity.
Hmm.
Everyone will hate us. So we just should let this happen. And I think that as more time goes on, more and more industries are going to come around to that. I think that that's funny, Cecilia. But anyway, I think that more industries will ultimately be like, yeah, it makes sense for us to, let, for example, really popular streamers use our content, even if it's like a TV or a movie or whatever, because it's just like it's free publicity. It's the kind of publicity that people in the gaming industry pay like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to get. So like kind of quietly let them do it. But we'll also see, because the other part of it for like the Olympics specifically is that a lot of all of their streaming content was going through Peacock, and they had like a huge deal with NBC for that, worth like billions of dollars, I think. And so, they don't want to have anything siphon off of that, obviously, because there's a tremendous amount of money that they put into it. So, you know, it's old media versus new media, and, an ongoing battle that continues and will continue for a very long time.
Yeah. I want to follow up on something that comes up in the story. Not the most important thing, but a really interesting question.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lawyer who is advocating on the part of XQC and has been a pretty kind of vocal proponent of this, as you
Mhm.
said, case is a bit overstated, but
Right.
of XQC's prospective case against the IOC?
Yeah. So his name is Ryan Morrison. He goes by the handle the video game attorney, and he pretty quickly became a focal point of all of this, largely due to Ethan Klein and H3H3 commenting on this, because basically Ryan Morrison had represented, or it's hard to get a full story out of Ryan on how this all worked, but like he had at least advised Ethan Klein on a case that he had that involved fair use back in 2017 that Ethan ended up winning after switching to different legal representation, and was apparently in danger of losing while working with Ryan in whatever capacity they worked. Um, and so, yeah, like there's all this controversy around him, and people were worried that, he was going to tank the case, and that would, result in, again, that chain reaction of events that would impact fair use and stuff like that. But again, like and then also people were worried about, like Pokimane specifically was worried about the fact that Ryan Morrison also runs a talent agency in addition to like performing legal services. Which is, I talked to a bunch of other lawyers about this, and they're like, yeah, it's a worthwhile ethical question. And they're like, I would hope that there are some dividing lines at his firm between people who handle, cases and litigation versus just doing more, agency level stuff. And Ryan said exactly that. He was like, I've never done litigation in my whole career. That's not the kind of lawyer I am. He does talent. And so, like, but, of course, people can say that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true, especially because, Ryan Morrison sort of started out as a lawyer in kind of a very, not to invoke a term that I think is fairly charged, but in a kind of bootstrappy way. And so I think that earlier in his career, he did a lot of stuff because he was just kind of all over the place and like trying to, make his way up to the world via social media. Um, but yeah, so I mean, again, he sort of, I think that maybe one of the big mistakes and one of the things that caused this to blow up in the first place was him going on Twitter and making these bold proclamations about like how XQC was contesting the DMCA and like standing up for what was right and blah blah blah. Because like Ryan Morrison himself is very social media savvy, and I think he saw an opportunity to, raise his own profile in doing that, as he has done with other legal or legalities and other like legal advice related things many times in the past. But the issue is that people caught onto that and kind of took it to mean something more significant than it actually meant. And so when I interviewed him, he like way walked that stuff back. He was like, honestly, very little chance this is going to go to case. Of the like he was like, we contest DMCA's all the time. The reason we choose to contest them is because we know that we're probably not going to have to deal with anything as a result. And like I asked him point blank, have you ever had to go to trial for any of the DMCA's you've contested? And he's like, no, firm has never had to do that. Not because it's a good idea to contest DMCA's, but because they pick their targets well. And so, yeah, I mean, like again, I think that the only outstanding factor here is that the IOC, the body that runs the Olympics, is especially litigious relative to a lot of other, entities that might have trouble with this sort of thing. Because the Olympics is obviously this huge ubiquitous brand, and it also has a lot of mystique behind it, and I think they want to maintain that. I think that if you started seeing like counterfeit Olympics merch and other things along those lines, and also I think Zach just did a funny emoji because he's actually the person who pointed me to uh, the pizza restaurant that they sued
Hmm.
in like 2008, just like some pizza restaurant called Olympia. Like they'll go that far in just to maintain like the power of their brand. So, you know, maybe they'll sue, but again, it's already like the Olympics are over now. It's already been, another more than a week. So I think probably XQC is in the clear. We'll see.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that because you, in the course of reporting your story, received a statement from the IOC.
Hmm.
What did they tell you? What was the tenor of that statement?
I
Uh,
mean,
go ahead.
it was, I don't know, it was a lot because it was this sort of like very like woe unto us type of statement where they were like, let's see. Oh man, they sent me an incredibly long statement, like comically long. The bit that we included in the article is like just a tiny portion of it, but they basically started by discussing like their business model and how they sell their rights and stuff like that. And they went into like, as a nonprofit, this is the only way that we can maintain the Olympics. And they had a whole section about how like this is for the athletes. Everything we do is for the athletes. Not touching on the fact that they decided to run the Olympics during a pandemic, which obviously was definitely for the athletes and not so that they could make millions and or billions of dollars. But yeah, it was just this very put upon like, that we are the wronged party here. This is very unjust and mean to us, and we're disempowered even though we're the god darn Olympics. So yeah,
Yeah,
it was really
I,
funny, frankly.
I feel like your story reminds me of last year I did the story about Twitch and labels, how record labels are finally taking interest in Twitch streamers and seeing how they're using music from like
Hmm.
I think it was like Usher's like song from like a couple of years ago, or like Ariana Grande 7 out copyright infringement notices to these streamers and telling them to stop using it. And I think that speaks to like record labels gaining more interest in Twitch, and that's a space that is wondering in the future. Just as Twitch grows bigger, as other industries that are more established take note. Where do they go from there? Do they work together, or do they just continue to kind of operate like a Wild West and have like Twitch streamers receive those notices on their own and have to kind of figure it out from there? And I think there are some more tools that Twitch has rolled out over time, so it does seem to be a space that's like worth monitoring as there's like more developments coming up.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, yeah, the comparison to like the music industry and stuff is fairly apt, if nothing else, than in the fact that like um a whole bunch of different entities have realized that they can just DMCA Twitch streamers, and they like, from their point of view, it makes sense to do. But the music industry thing is also like very specifically fraught in terms of how Twitch has handled it, not just on the side of what they have and have not done for streamers, but also the kind of conflict that they sort of cause for themselves with the music industry. They've managed to dig their heels in a way that I think has made the music industry not happy. And so the music industry is like, we're going to hit a bunch of streamers over this and basically like force y'all's hand. We're just going to keep doing this until you do something that's actually up to our particular standards. And Twitch is not really like they've changed how they operate in some ways, but not such that the music industry is appeased. And so it's just kind of an ongoing, never currently never-ending kind of battle. But yeah, I mean, I think that obviously, TV and film is also paying attention to Twitch, in part because like Twitch is a competitor for the TV and film industries, like a direct competitor. I mean, both in terms of what people choose to do, like it's the evening, you're at home, you're gonna watch TV, you're gonna watch Twitch, and then also in terms of sheer numbers, Twitch at this point rivals any major television network in terms of the viewership it's pulling, and it's pulling younger demographics, which all of these more legacied media companies want. So
Yeah, we're definitely going to see more crossover between gaming and entertainment. Film, like we see Netflix continue to invest in this before, and they're also putting out job positions and hiring more for games. So that's also worth monitoring. I think one thing with the music industry, it's really a question that I could never get closer on, is that Twitch is owned by Amazon. Amazon has Prime Music, and why don't they just work together? They do, and there's just like real answer for that. So I thought that was interesting.
well, there is a Prime Music like plugin for Twitch. It's just very poorly advertised. Like Twitch didn't point to it, and it had been around since before all of this stuff happened with the music industry. But Twitch is not really like pointed to it as a thing. I think it's an instance of like left hand and right hand not really meeting very well. But yeah, I mean, there's some interoperability there. It's just not really well advertised or frequently used.
Yeah.
So speaking of kind of Twitch, the company, Nathan, yesterday you published a story about the hashtag Twitch Do Better.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a bit about what that is and what Twitch's response to that has been, which I think came in pretty late yesterday
Mhm.
and a tiny bit this morning?
Right. Yeah. So Twitch Do Better is a hashtag that has trended multiple times over the past week on Twitter. That came out of one streamer. Her name is Wreck-It Raven. Basically being like what is known as hate rated multiple times over the course of the past week. And when people hate raid you, they basically come into your chat either with a bunch of individual actual people or more often with a bunch of like fake accounts that they've managed to coordinate via bots and stuff like that, and they just spam your chat with whatever heinous shit they can think of. Some of the time it's like very broad and general and like edgelordy stuff, whether it's Nazi comments or like racist comments directed vaguely at like streamers of color. Other times, and this is when it gets especially pernicious, it can be like highly targeted. I think that was one of the things that actually I wish I had included more in my story is the Wreck-It Raven has also dealt with like really targeted hate raids where they're like calling out specific characteristics of them, like which clearly demonstrates like an element of somebody like researching them and being very specific about like, yeah, I've decided to go after this person in a way that like naturally is going to make somebody feel way more uncomfortable than just blanket racism or whatever. It's like, at that point you basically have a stalker that was enabled by Twitch. And Twitch actually has like a history of issues with this. One of the people who got hate rated during all of the Twitch Do Better stuff, Tanya DePass, actually reported on an entire stalker saga that she dealt with back in like 2017 or 2018, where somebody was just basically using a bunch of Twitch loopholes to never leave her alone, to like constantly be in her whispers and her DMs on the platform and like just make new accounts every time they got banned or in trouble, never leave her alone, never leave her mods alone, say all this threatening stuff, all this weird stuff, followed her for like years. And Twitch was like, we can't do anything. But yeah, so basically, as a result of hate raids and all of that, people started this or Raven started this hashtag. It blew way up because this is definitely a thing that a lot of streamers have been dealing with for the past few months. I mean, raids that are hateful in nature for years, but in this particular manner, it's definitely gone up in the past few months in the wake of like Twitch adding new tags that allow people to specifically find like black and trans and disabled streamers. And so it was just like a boiling point, right? It was this moment when one person said the thing that a lot of other people have been feeling. And as a result, just everyone felt empowered to speak up. And so they did. And the main request was like, I mean, it was a very like it was a good hashtag, right? Because on one hand, it was very vague in terms of like the actual wording of it. It was just Twitch, do something. But on the other hand, like it had some pretty specific demands underlying it, which is I think what made it go so far. Like the main pillars of it were hate raids are bad. Other forms of like bot-based harassment are also very bad and need to be dealt with. And then like if you're going to subject us to this kind of harassment on a regular basis, at the very least, we should be making more money than this split that you've given us, which is 50-50 by default on Twitch. And which is like, yeah, not good money. And it's even like poor compared to other competitors in the space. Facebook, I think, gives people 70-30 off the bat. See, I want to say that I know that at least one other streaming platform has the same setup where it's 70-30 by default. So yeah, I mean, like people had a lot of very valid complaints. And then what came out of that eventually, after a lot of people sharing some very harrowing stories, and then for sharing those stories, getting targeted even more. Like what happened is that some streamers spoke up, then got hate rated for speaking up with like specific, lines and references to them doing that. But yeah, so finally, after a couple days of that, Twitch issued a statement via Twitter where they were like, we need to have an open dialogue about this. Never mind the fact that everyone already was. Like, that was just, you know, interact with the dialogue that's happening. Don't wait like 2 days. Be like, yeah. So what Zach says, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, YouTube is also 70-30. So yeah, everyone should stream on YouTube now. But anyway, yeah, so Twitch was like, we need to have an open dialogue about this. We need to do better, blah, blah, blah. They specifically noted that they had found like an issue within the platform that allowed hate speech to get through a little bit more than it should be able to. And so they like closed that loophole. They didn't really specify what it was. And we'll see about that because I think they've been working for years to close loopholes like that, and yet the problem persists. So but yeah, they also mentioned that they're going to be implementing new features that allow for better, like basically channel level banning of people. That being that like people individually on Twitch can ban folks from like being in their chat and stuff like that. So I think they plan to empower users more on that front so that they can keep people that they've banned actually away from their channels instead of just kind of nominally doing it and people having ways to get around it. So I mean, they just outlined like some really basic plans they have, but they didn't really address kind of some of their central issues on this front. One of which is that they introduced these tags and basically said like, okay, streamers who are of marginalized backgrounds, here are better ways for people to find you, which those streamers have been asking for a very long time, but they didn't give them any additional means of protection in the face that now people can just have a centralized page they can go to like find streamers of color or trans streamers or whatever. Because on one hand, good they can be discovered by people who would like them and want to watch their streams, but it's not great that they can be found by harassers much more easily. And so yeah, Twitch did one part of the job, a needed part, but they didn't do the other. And they still haven't really said anything that suggests that they are doing that part. The features they talked about don't really fit that mold. And so that's not ideal. And Twitch has a history of this. Like when they were spotlighting people for the PogChamp emote a while back, which is basically they got rid of that emote after a whole bunch of other stuff related honestly to racism, but that is a whole saga unto itself. But yeah, they were for a while having every day they'd have a different PogChamp emote and it would be a different streamer's face. And so they did that with some streamers of color. And of course, those streamers got harassed just wall to wall. Just crazy amounts of harassment spilled over into their streams, was also on other platforms, which Twitch can't handle quite as well. But I mean, was very present on Twitch and their chats and stuff like that. And it was just like, you guys had to know this was going to happen. There's just no way it's not. And so the least they could have done, for example, is like given those streamers on the days they highlighted them, like some, a direct line to staff or something, just people they can talk to, you know, day long support from additional moderators, just like you wouldn't have to scale that for the whole platform, even in that case. But like what I'm saying is that it more suggests the extent to which I think whichever parts of Twitch end up handling these things think about how adversely marginalized streamers are going to be impacted by the things that like they could just do for white streamers in a heartbeat and not really have to worry about. And it's like, well, no, these are two very different use cases, and you can't like Yeah, you can't do something like that for marginalized streamers without expecting huge blowback to hit those streamers. So you got to prepare for that too. And Twitch just has a history of not really doing that. And I think that's why this hashtag blew up so much, because there's a long history here, and streamers have every reason to be fed up, and so they are.
Yeah. Zach in the chat mentions they need to offer more to control the experience of their chat, two-factor authorization, account newness limits.
Yep.
Reed Gaines mentioned, automated prevention, more automated prevention. Cecilia also mentions it's a Discord issue as well,
it's
which
very
you
much
touched on
Discord.
in your story. A lot that Twitch can do. It remains to be seen when and if that does happen. And Nathan, you will keep us posted on that, I'm sure.
Yep, I will absolutely do that.
All right, to pivot to another story, not much more uplifting. Shannon, tell us a bit about your reporting on Activision Blizzard. You have been, I think, kind of leading the charge on coverage there, especially for the Post. Tell us a bit about where that story stands now and what you've uncovered in the, I guess I would say, 3 weeks now of covering that beat.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes back to the same that we find ourselves in the Twitch story too. It's just in the games industry, a lot of people are finally like, well, they've always been asking questions, raising, but this time there's more. So first of all, there was the Activision law ago, most people, but the long and short of it is California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing doing Activision Blizzard for discrimination, harassment, and other instances of misconduct. And we just published a feature last week about this. We named were fired from from Blizzard Entertainment subsidiary, and they were fired after many people had, but never about them, and like they just were kept in positions of power. There was like a chief technology officer and a lead World of Warcraft designer. Somebody else who was like a lead in esports, Rosen, who was able to give us being fired and investigated. So that is the kind of summary of what happened, and then from there, after the lawsuit, is when all came up to speak out their stories and sharing them to social media and also walking out. They're all work from home, so it was like it was a in-person walkout, but walking out in front of the and then also alongside that, there's also Blizzard management emailing out responses that employees did not find satisfactory, including Chief Compliance Officer Francis, who had been like to Bush in early 2000s for about 4 years, and she wrote an email saying, this paints a distorted view, or it's like true, and that just infuriated a lot of employees, especially because she had started a company a couple months ago, and during the pandemic, she didn't even go to the office culture that was alleged in the law. So from there, she actually stepped down and resigned as executive sponsor of the Activision King Women's Network, and the company gave a statement for that as well. And then today brings us to today. We saw yesterday, 3 people have been fired according to employees. The company just says they are no longer with the company. They don't go into any more specific than that, but it's Jesse McCree, lead World of Warcraft. There's also Diablo leads and Louise Baraga and Jonathan LeCraft too. So the 3 of them, 2 of them are pictured in a photo from this article, Kotaku, I'll say like around 2 weeks ago. Pictured in this like 2013 BlizzCon holiday kind of event in the Disneyland hotel where they were inside this so-called Cosby Suite, which is named after Cosby, who is alleged to be a rapist. And other people say that the Cosby Suite was named after his sweater, and the sweater pattern and the pattern. But yeah, so there were two of them were photographed in a photo in that suite. I think might have been Kraft and McCree were photographed there, and then Baragat was not, but there have been a lot of people saying things about him. And so that's so much. That's everything that we know. But basically, I think it's like a moment of where everyone feels like it's comfortable to start talking about it. We also saw that Ubisoft joined the walkout in terms of like writing a letter, calling for change, and saying that after 1 year, it's really so. I think there's like a lot of gaming companies just questioning the culture of the company and asking if firing a couple people is enough, or if there's something more systemic that isn't.
So I want to open the floor very briefly to Alyse and Nathan. Shannon just raised Jesse McCree, a staffer who was let go by Blizzard. Opening to kind of Alyse and Nathan, do you guys have experience with Blizzard games? Are you familiar with the character in Overwatch, McCree?
Oh yes.
I'm not. I haven't played a lot of Activision Blizzard games, but I have played Overwatch, so I do know that reference.
Mhm.
Yeah. So over the past, I guess, week and a half, it seems as though casters have been discouraged from saying the name McCree on stream, although there's also some reporting that suggests that's not the case. Anecdotally, personally, I have heard from friends who attended a recent Overwatch LAN on a pretty small scale who noticed something similar and were surprised by it. Um, as a This is less of a reporting led question and more of a general question about kind of naming conventions, your thoughts. What do you think happens to that character, if anything, given the past around Activision Blizzard, around like naming conventions like this? What do you see happening, if anything, with that in the next couple of weeks, month or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think that yeah, I mean, I can't tell if like with Overwatch League if the casters made that call or if there's pressure put on them. But in any case, like I feel like this unfolds one of two ways. Either they do that in the short term, and then after a certain point, maybe after the end of the season or something, just everything goes back to normal. They just, one day they just start saying his name again, and it's fine because the controversy, for their purposes, blew over. Or alternatively, Blizzard goes a little bit further with it and like finds a reason to change his name or something. Like there are a million story reasons they could just fabricate to be like, actually, Jesse McCree was a fake name, or like, actually, you've been mishearing it the entire time. Everyone and all their Overwatch characters have some sort of weird collective hallucination. But I mean, like some people on Twitter and stuff have been like, what if they just get rid of McCree? I'm like, they're not going to do that. I mean, like for one, Overwatch is a game where they're all about like balancing around every possible, like all the different character combinations and things like that. If you just suddenly remove a character, that's going to have a fairly profound impact on everything else in the game, and it's going to like, for example, probably set back development on Overwatch 2 quite a lot. They don't want to do that. And then also like, he's a beloved character. People have made tons of fan art of him, tons of fan fiction, whatever. To just delete him from a game is just very unlikely, especially from a company like Activision Blizzard, who seems very intent on doing the least amount of work possible to deal with this issue.
Yeah, Shannon, just raising to you, Robert Schuster in the chat says, thank you for your reporting on this, Shannon. It means a lot to the workers in the industry. And on that note, I want to ask what you've heard from folks that you can kind of report and say about, Nathan raised Overwatch 2. There are a lot of kind of projects in the works at Activision Blizzard. What have you heard from folks working at the company about how their schedules have been impacted, how morale has been impacted, kind of where they go from here as workers?
Yeah. That first of all, thank you, and second of all, I hope you can hear me now. I know I was having some mic issues earlier. Okay, great. I think it was just like the setting. I fixed it. So that's a good question. So for Overwatch 2, I heard it was, taking a very long time to make because it was originally supposed to be just like an expansion of the original Overwatch, and now it's supposed to be a full game on its own and standing on its own. So there's a lot of work to be done. And that was impacted when Jeff Kaplan left the company as well, just a couple months ago. So with all of this in consideration, and I haven't actually asked people on Overwatch like what their morale is, but I did ask people about Diablo 4, for instance, which because of the people who just departed the company, and that would have like a direct impact on Diablo 4. But as far as I've heard, some of the key positions have been filled already. Even the person who left, like, he has a replacement working there already. So it should be fine. They have to prioritize developing that game, like, to please shareholders and investors. It's going to be like a very big game for them. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe the people who have left, would have made a different version of that game. So maybe it will impact like various little things about the game as it comes out. It won't be like the original Blizzard magic, but there's still people working on it, so the production is still going to be met.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I want to ask. Oh, Nathan, were you about to say something?
I was gonna ask a very dumb question.
Please.
Which is that, we've been talking about McCree, the obvious namesake of the Overwatch character Jesse McCree, but no one's talking about Jonathan LeCraft, presumably the namesake of all of Warcraft and StarCraft. Are they going to have to also rename those games? This is a bit, by the way. That's not a true fact.
Okay.
It would be very funny to me if they're like, yeah, it's just called War now and Star. We had to get rid of Craft.
It seemed credible to me for a second, where I was like, I guess, like, I can really imagine a developer working on, like, way back whenever like StarCraft was in the works. I'm a zoomer. I don't know, years. And just being like, yeah, I'm gonna name this after myself. Just, I'm McCraft, this is StarCraft. So you almost got one over on me. I'm glad you clarified that was a bit.
Man,
Because
I should just pivot to trying to fool Zoomers, like with definitely fake facts. That should just be my whole thing from now on.
I think at some point, Among Us has kind of faded from the collective consciousness, but when I played with the team, I was very good at it because I guess similarly to you, Nathan, I like to lie.
Yeah.
Or like is maybe the wrong word. I am good at it. That doesn't sound much better either, but we should play Among Us at some point.
What about instilling confidence in our audience that they can trust us?
Yeah,
Listen,
we're a bunch of reporters who really enjoy lying.
I
but not
lie.
like that. I know that sentence sounds bad, but it's different, so don't worry about it.
I will say in my last workplace, I was the only like person under 30, and I absolutely gaslit them about what I knew. So they would be like talking about a CD player, and I say, "What's that?" Or the same with like VHS
one of
and
those
like
flat plastic donuts.
Yeah, I was like, "What? Huh? Do you get your music on a physical what?"
I think there's a work-life distinction that is drawn where we lie to our friends, we lie to family, we lie to the people closest to us, and then we get to work and we put on our journalism hat that has like press sticking out of it, and we become a completely different person who
we go into
never
the
lies.
phone booth and change, like
Exactly.
Superman.
Except like we change into journalism clothes, and then when we change out, there's like a big L on our chest, which also doesn't really convey the best thing.
No.
Yeah, no, our reporting is sound. We don't lie at work.
No,
the weirdest disclaimer I've ever had to make on air. We like to lie in video games.
In fact, see, that's the appeal of games for us, right? They allow us to live out that fantasy we normally can't live out.
Yeah.
Normally, we are bound by our career and, in many cases, the law to not lie. But in a video game, you can just say whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. Isn't that wonderful?
You can own a farm
You
and
can.
play Stardew
Exactly.
Valley.
You can own
There
a
is-
farm. You can treat the animals in that better than you treat your own pets, which is probably not good, but it's what some people do.
There is a universe in which, like, instead of Doom, instead of games like that, Among Us is one of the first games that comes out and like really grabs mainstream attention. And there's a ton of press and a ton of studies, not about video games causing violence, but about video games causing an increase in like
Making
gaslighting,
pathological liars.
liars. Yeah.
I
Are
think
our
I-
kids growing up to become liars?
And they then like attribute all of that to video games instead of
Mm.
corporate America. They're
So
like,
true.
this isn't the problem. The real problem is video games.
Yeah. Shannon, what were you what were you about to say?
I've seen that before, like a Reddit post. I don't know if it's to be believed, but there was a post saying like, "Oh, Among Us has broken up me and my girlfriend, and now she hates me" or something. So, yeah, I think we're not far away from that future.
I lost my girl to Among Us.
Aw. I consider myself a pretty like even-keeled, calm person. Among Us has made me like rage quit, where I knew a thing was going on and nobody believed me. Eric, who is in the chat, he was in that game with me where I was just like, I'm out, I quit, close the computer, like leave, log off of everything and come back the next day. So
Damn.
I am sure that there are less stable people than me who yeah, I usually don't believe things on Reddit, but Shannon, that seems perfectly convincing to me. I completely believe that.
Right.
Yeah,
Ah.
especially impressive because I mean, I would assume you have saint-like patience because you play Valorant. Like, you must be able to really keep your cool like at all times to play that.
It's a bit of a sore subject because very recently I was in a game. This is such a stupid tangent, but where I was playing in it with a group of friends, and like two of those friends started like engaging in an argument with a troll. And for me, I have like learned that the path of least resistance is to just agree, give in, like, haha, you are so funny, Mr. Troll. Let's win the game. I don't care about what's going on instead of arguing. I have like saint level patience when I play Valorant. So I think that is conditioned me to become more patient, more understanding.
Wow.
We're pivoting
Same.
away from the
Where are
I
the
like
studies
lying
about that?
discussion to
Can
I am
I just
saint
say-
like. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just say that also is true for League of Legends? I feel like I've cultivated so much patience. I'm always like, hey, it's okay, we're all good. You're so good, great play. But it's like they're going in to die. I'm like, great job, you did well.
Yeah.
Doing it yourself. So
That's what like the private Discord with your friends is for, where there's the like team chat you can do, and there you're guys, we're winning 9-3, we don't have to get mad. And then in the Discord, you're like, I would kill this person, I would like kick them into a big dark pit, but I'm not going to tell them that because we're a team and it's a team game. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is it really gaining patience, or is it becoming good at pretending you are being patient?
And is that
Is
just
it
lying?
Being
No, don't
Oh,
say that I'm good at
no.
lying.
yeah.
Do
brought
not
that
say
full
that I'm
circle.
good at lying. Damn. Yeah, Hawken in the chat with the right conclusion. Video games make us better people. I think that is the classic takeaway that I think everyone can agree on. That gamers on the whole are good.
Interesting.
That's a leap. Did you stretch before that leap?
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Hawkins
Yeah,
said it.
I'm
Hawkins
just-
said it.
I'm
Not.
I'm just thinking back to like all the Facebook posts. I'm in this group for like it's just trolling around, but like people would say like, "Oh, I'm not looking for a partner who plays League of Legends." Like that would be a really bad personality flaw. Anyway,
Just yeah, I can see on dating apps in the same way that you can like add a little notification that like I'm vaccinated. You could have like does not play League of Legends. Yeah.
Exactly.
Never
That's,
played League.
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, what if that was like, what if somebody checked that and then you like actually went on a date with them and they're like, okay, I have a confession. I have played like a few hours of League like years ago. And it's like, nope, that's it. Deal breaker. I'm
You just
out.
Yeah.
flip your
I'm
plate.
sorry. If you're gonna
leave,
lie
Yeah.
about
storm
this,
out.
what else will you lie about?
Mhm.
No. Red flag.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything we wanted to on this stream and
And our
more.
moderator left. So
Oh no, rest in peace.
Yeah,
No,
rip in
Hawken's still
peace.
around. Even though Hawken has recanted the belief that video games make us better people, which fair enough. Fair enough.
Well,
We all
I'm already the
make us.
best person, so that's not possible.
That's fair.
Whoa.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
it's a real honor to work with you. I didn't
Yeah,
know I'd
yeah,
get to
it
meet
is.
the
It
best
is.
person,
It is
let
for you.
alone work with them.
the takeaway from this stream has nothing to do with lies or any of that stuff. Forget that. It is that we are, as a whole, our team, the launchies, we are saint-like, good, well-behaved, smart, well-intentioned, non-liars. And I think that's a pretty good note to sign off on. So thank you so much to the viewers for tuning in. Nathan, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at VAHN16. The name is a reference to a JRPG from on the place that I came up with when I was a teenager. That's why it's bad. But also, I do want to point out something very quickly, which is that all the stuff that you just said is what a liar would say to make people believe they're not a liar.
I'm gonna leave the call. Alyse, how about you? Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on Twitter at Pithy Alyse. I'm ALYSE. Very rarely do people pronounce it right, so that's why I spell it out.
Perfect. Shannon, how about you? Where can people find you?
Oh, you found me already. So it's Shannon underscore.
We're outside. The police
No,
sirens just go.
well, okay, it's Shannon underscore LAO. That's my last name. But yeah.
Great. And you can read the great work of our writers and editors, and John, our video producer, just the fantastic work of the launch crew, the launchies at launcher.gg. Thank you so much again, everyone, for tuning in. And as our sign off always is and has been, have a safe flight, launch crew.
That was good.